Do as I say and not as I do, because I am more important than you. That seems to be the message of a lot of people. Most recently, it seems Mark Zuckerberg, the owner or primary shareholder of Facebook, who it turns out, according to reporting from the New York Post, spent $43 million. That's $43 million on security over the last 3 years to protect himself and his family from who knows what. Let's talk about it when we get back and what it means for all of us. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the Four Boxes Diner, proud American gun owner, constitutional attorney, member of the U.S. Supreme Court Bar, and author of the brand new best-selling book, Disarm, What the Ukraine War Teaches Americans About the Right to Bear Arms. Also, make sure you check us out on Twitter at Four Boxes Diner. All right, folks. So there's a great line here to begin with. Peter Schweizer, who we've seen on Fox News and all over the media, does a lot of great reporting, investigative reporting. He wrote a book called Do As I Say, Not As I Do, Profiles in Liberal Hypocrisy. And in that book, he has a great, powerful line that I want to quote to you before we talk about Mark Zuckerberg and his $43 million he spends, or has spent in the last 3 years, on private security. Peter Schweizer wrote in his book, quote, despite the fact that they often speak of them with genuine conviction, these do-as-I-say liberals don't actually trust their ideas enough to apply them at home. Instead, when it comes to the things that matter most in their personal lives, they tend to behave, ironically, more like conservatives than liberals, which can only make one wonder, if their liberal prescriptions don't really work for them as individuals, how can they work for the rest of us? A great question and observation by Peter Schweizer, the investigative journalist. Now, the reason why I gave you that quote is this. We know that there's many liberals out there that are very rich and powerful that argue and support causes that are anti-gun. For example, we know that Mark Zuckerberg and his organizations and nonprofits in the 2020 election, supported overwhelmingly Democratic-related causes, including get out the vote in heavily Democratic areas. That's been well reported. There's also discussions of the role that Facebook played in preventing, for example, the Hunter Biden story from maybe circulating on Facebook as much as it should have. Nevertheless, that's not what this video is about. What this video about is that here you have Mark Zuckerberg, who seems to be supporting Democratic causes, which would obviously include gun control for you and me. But obviously, I'm guessing not for Mark Zuckerberg. Because if you spend $43 million every 3 years, tens of millions of dollars a year on private security, which Mark Zuckerberg and his family apparently does, paid for by the company, at least according to the New York Post reporting, which I'll put a link to it down below. Do you think some of that comes with firearms? You think he's got some guns in there? Some guys with guns? Yeah, I'm guessing the answer is yes, right? Well, it seems to me, and this just illustrates the point, that they're perfectly fine to vote for policies that prevent you and I from being able to protect ourselves and our families because we're just not as good as they are. We're the peasants. We're the peons. They're the elites. To many people on the left, the movie The Hunger Games, where all the money and resources goes to capital city, where they can live beautiful lives, and the rest of us just have to toil and be tax farmed to death and disarmed. Well, guess what? I think a lot of left progressives in modern day America would like the Hunger Games to become a documentary and not just a fictional work. They would like us to be toiling our fields, tax farmed, disarmed, and subservient to all of them. That is how they view us, and that is the reality I think they would like to achieve. That is why they need to take the guns from law-abiding Americans who've done nothing wrong, all using an excuse when psychopaths misuse guns. But what does that have to do with the people that are exercising their right to keep arms in the Second Amendment? I think it speaks a little bit to a famous quote from George Orwell, who's best known for his book, 1984. But there's another very powerful political work that he wrote, George Orwell that is, that's called Animal Farm. In his book called Animal Farm, which basically is a political allegory, he writes, quote, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Well, I think that applies directly to the goals and views of America's elites specifically America's elites when it comes to gun grabbing. All Americans should be treated equally, so they say. All Americans should be disarmed. But some Americans, apparently guys like Mark Zuckerberg, are special and are entitled to the benefit of guns. But you and I know that in the real world, the real life that we all live is not a Hollywood movie. In the real world, the atomic blonde Charlize Theron is not going to be able to take out a half a dozen East German security agents. Superhero Scarlett Johansson, as much as we may like her, she's probably not going to be able to beat up a man twice her size. And when the latest protest march ends, seeking to disarm all of us, I'm guessing a lot of these anti-gun hypocrites are going to go home to their well-guarded compounds or gated communities surrounded by men with guns. That's my guess. Now, mind you, what's particularly galling about the Mark Zuckerberg thing, according to the New York Post reporting, quote, Mark Zuckerberg has reportedly gifted at least $5.5 million to organizations advocating for the defunding or abolishing of police through his personal organization, the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. It wouldn't be the first time Mark Zuckerberg has been seemingly hypocritical when it comes to protecting his family. And then the New York Times simply talks about how, frankly, they block the faces and photographs of the family of their younger children, which I guess I can't blame them for that. But nevertheless, that is what the New York Post discusses. So my only point of this video is I just want you to have in the back of your mind that Mark Zuckerberg, who supports democratic causes, including defunding the police, and encouraging Democrats to be elected, and he supports them, obviously with their anti-gun disarmament agenda. Mark Zuckerberg spends $43 million every 3 years on private security. I'm guessing that includes some guns. That's my best guess. Nevertheless, this hypocrisy should not be lost on all of us. We need to keep remembering all of this. And when they tell you to give up your guns, you should say one thing. You disarm first. You go first and you show us how it's done. Because mind you, if you think about all the different types of elites in our society, Hollywood elites that hire 500, police officers, firemen, FBI, helicopters to patrol, for example, the Academy Awards. The royal elites, the coronation we saw of King Charles, few AR-15s there among the British Guards in so-called gun-free England? I would say yes. The royal elites such as the Pope in Vatican City, protected by the Swiss Guard and really big walls. Surprisingly, walls apparently work for the Vatican, but apparently, according to the left, they don't work for our southern border. And of course, the billionaire elites, including Mark Zuckerberg and others like Michael Bloomberg and many more. We can keep the list on going. I think you guys can do it just as well as I can. Not to mention the political elites, the lifetime Secret Service protection of Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, Hillary and Bill Clinton, and of course, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. These political elites get 24/7 lifetime Secret Service protection, all the while telling us that we should be disarmed. Because at the end of the day, they think they are better than us. They're the elites and we're the peons, and they want us to know that. The good news is we have a Second Amendment and a U.S. Constitution. Our founders were very wise. And hopefully by the virtue of the work of this YouTube channel and my writings and the work of many other people in support of our constitutional form of government and our supporters who support the right to keep and bear arms, hopefully the vision of the left and the progressives to turn us into serfs and subjects as opposed to citizens will never actually occur. Nevertheless, let's keep this stuff in mind as we fight for our rights here and in the future. Okay, hope you learned a little bit something here today at this Four Boxes Diner video about Mark Zuckerberg and his private security details. And again, if you haven't subscribed to the Four Boxes Diner here on YouTube or on Four Boxes Diner on Twitter, please do so, and we'll see you again soon here at the Four Boxes Diner. See you soon.
Orders up. Table 2A.